So we'll save that for the show, okay?
Okay.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be Dash Beardsley, aka the Ghostman of Galveston, Texas. And he does ghost tours in the Galveston Island area. And we're going to talk about his tour thing, and we're going to talk about what he's going to be doing for the Paracon Central Texas Paranormal Conference coming up. I want to say October 8th and 9th, and let me look at their page, and yes, October 8th and 9th, this month, and about another 4 days, in fact. And we're going to talk about his role there and some of the things they have going on, as well as his ghost tours and anything else that he might have going on, as much as we can squeeze into the time we got to squeeze. So, Dash, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing just fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you here. And, yeah, I got to tell you, I never knew you had that going down there in Galveston. Me and my wife are talking about how we'd like to go on one of your ghost tours one of these days.
Right. Well, when I started this thing in 1998, I didn't do a lot of advertising because, as I was telling you a while ago, things came together and several points in my life, and I was a little unsure at first, but then it became clear, you know, what I was meant to do, what I was supposed to do. And so it took a while for me actually, you know, to develop into a good storyteller, a good tour guide, and all that kind of thing, because I had no experience at that, and I wanted to be good at it. So I took about 2 years to just develop and work on it. And it took, I guess, till about 2002 to really start being noticed. And then after that, things took off. So...
Well, at least you got something to do there that's really pretty, well, it's a lot of fun to do. And you say, I think you mentioned to me before the show started that you've been doing this since 98?
Yes, sir. Yeah, since 1998. I started in 98, and I was, like I said, I wasn't a very good tour guide, to tell you the honest truth, when I started. And I started studying people, you know, every speaker that I could find that was good, from Billy Graham to Sam Kinison to, you know, comedians, different people, just to have a good delivery in the stories. Because the stories alone are not enough. Many ghost tours have started and failed because they had no entertainment ability. And so you've got to have that along with good material and real stories, you know. That was another thing. I wanted very much to make sure my stories were well studied and that I had a lot of fact for it. So, because I just didn't want to tell people a bunch of lies and, you know, make a few bucks and all that stuff. I wanted to do something really good, and I think it's turned into that.
So, do you have any idea what got you attracted by Paracon?
I have no idea. I do not know. I don't know. I guess they saw my picture and went, boy, he looks weird, you know.
Actually, my wife said you reminded her of Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Well, that's not the first time I've heard that. That's, I guess, in a way, that's a compliment, although he's not the best-looking guy in the world. But Dog's a good guy. He is. He does a good thing. Yeah, I've heard that. I think it's just the hair.
Yeah, I think so. Your hair looks very close to his.
Yeah.
And
I think don't have the little pompadour in the front like he does, you know. But
I never paid attention to that, but I will next time she's watching it.
Yeah. He's got a pointed front there or something going on. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that you used to, you were originally from Houston, if I understood you correctly?
Yes, sir. I was born and raised in the Heights.
In my stomping grounds.
Right. My father was in the oil business. My grandfather was the head accountant for Gulf Oil for years, for about 47 years, as a matter of fact. And I was the black sheep of the family, pretty much. So, I had a kind of a rough entrance, shall we say, into this world, but everything worked out, and I'm pleased with where I am today. I learned a lot on the way. Like I say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So that's what happened. Things got better.
Okay. Well, my wife was asking in the chat room if the bishop's house in Galveston is haunted.
Bishop's Palace?
House.
The bishop's house. I know Bishop's Palace.
Maybe that's what she meant. Maybe she got the name mixed up.
I think she means Bishop's Palace. Well, it's rumored to be haunted, but they are very strict in Galveston about that kind of thing. And so I'll have to respect what they ask, about that. There are some stories floating around. To be honest with you, I don't know if they have a lot of fact behind them. But I believe there's activity going on there. But as long as they want to keep it quiet, I'll have to abide by that, But there's many other places there that are haunted. The Tremont Hotel, very haunted place. The Ashton Villa, another very haunted place. In fact, this year, one of our activities is we're going to do the very first of the Ashton Villa ghost hunts. And that is where Miss Betty Brown, James Brown, and he was a white guy, but and I don't think he danced either. But James was a very successful man in hardware, and his daughter was very colorful, and a lot of people think she haunts that mansion because various people have gone by and seen her, and people who have worked there say they've seen and heard her. And but that's a very famous ghost story. So I did some research on it myself, and I came away with a different conclusion. And we're going to find out this October. We're on the 22nd and 23rd, and then the last weekend. What is that? The 28th, 29th. We're going to do 4 ghost hunts. The attendance is limited, but we're going to do some there with some great paranormal investigators, and so that should be interesting. Be the very first one. It took me this long to talk them into doing it. So.
Sounds like you're going to have a time of your life, though. Also, before I forget, I want to mention anybody, because I realize not everybody listens at my website. A lot of people might be listening at Shoutcast or at iTunes. You can call in at 832-632-7904 if you have any questions you want to ask. And if you want to join us at www.paranormalpalace.com, sign up is free, and you can get into the chat room with Mickey and Carol and have a high old time talking while you're listening. Also, I wanted to mention that the website for Dash here is www.ghosttoursofgalvestonisland.com, and he's got a nice page up. He's got a YouTube video up on the front page, and you can see how he looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter right there in his logo and the whole 9 yards. And also, the web link to the conference is www.ctparacon.com, and I will be pasting these into the chat room. And also, this show will be archived tomorrow for people that couldn't make it to the show at the paranormalpalace.com in the archives. You'll want to look in the menu on your left and click on New Archives, because since I left Blog Talk, I don't post to the same archive section on my site. I separated the ones I'm doing on my website from Blog Talk shows. I don't know if you heard of Blog Talk Radio or not, Dash, but they provide a radio stream for people that want to get their own show.
I've heard of it.
And I left them not long ago, and I haven't got my audience all moved over to this website yet. I'm working on it. It's a kind of a slow transition. Most people, you give them the link and they misplace it. They bookmark it. They can't find it. And, well, you know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Sure do.
I was going to also mention everybody that they're going to have a ghost investigation. If I remember correctly, according to Janine Plummer, I think was the one who told me that they're going to be investigating the Bristol Hotel in Austin. You're familiar with that, aren't you, Dash?
Yes, sir. I've been there. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be partaking in that investigation as well?
Oh, most likely. I'm trying to keep up with my own schedule here, yeah, but I think I'll be in on that. Yeah.
Okay. And what exactly all are you going to be doing for the conference?
I will be there. I'll be telling a bit about Galveston. I'll be telling a bit about how my tour developed, how it started, and I'll be offering some information on some brand new tours I have. I have one called the Restless Spirits Tour. Now, it was called that, or rather I named it that because, Tammy, my girlfriend, named it that, and actually she was the one that did it. But it was a great name because it describes exactly what it is, because it's more like ongoing paranormal activity. Places we visit have ongoing activity that happens all the time, or so they say, It's a little more like what you see on TV, a little less history, and a lot more ghost stories. So people have filmed, seen, and say these places that we're visiting are extremely haunted. So Galveston is one of the most haunted places in the world. When I tell you that, the reason is it had sudden, unexpected death very quickly. One thing after another happened there, starting with the Cronquan Indians, on through the Civil War, and on through the Great Storm, which everybody knows about. 6,000 people killed in the city of Galveston, another 6,000 in the surrounding counties of Galveston. Another 1,000 to 2,000 disappeared. So just in that area alone from the Great Storm, many people died. And dealing with the bodies was hard to do. They went through a lot of changes trying to get rid of the bodies, basically give them burial first at sea. That didn't work because most of them washed back in, so they had to find a place to dry them out where they were waterlogged. So all along the strand where you walk today, most of those buildings were used where they brought in, heavy waterlogged bodies and allowed them to dry out for about 3 weeks, and they created funeral pyres and had a great religious ceremony, burning the bodies. So, and also the funeral pyres were right there. They're a lot of them are the very parking lots where people park today, but they don't know that.
Okay.
So, the Restless Spirits was one tour. I'd say the most interesting tour that I've got right now just started, and it's called the Mystery Island Tour, and that's unsolved mysteries, basically. I found some information, and I know some people are going to raise their eyebrows in your audience when I say this, but I promise you I have very compelling information that Jack the Ripper actually, I went to England. I started this about 5 years ago, but I actually went to look at Whitechapel for myself back in April, not this past April, but the one before. Went there and started a study to try to find out, because I had heard somewhere that Jack the Ripper had actually visited Galveston at one time, but I didn't really honestly believe it. And when I started this study, I started looking into forensics and a few other things, and I found that there was a real pathway for one of the candidates for Jack the Ripper that came over from England, went to New York City, actually went from New York to New Orleans, from New Orleans to Dallas, from Dallas to Galveston. And then he went on to a few other places in the U.S. and then started a pathway going back and forth across the sea. But it goes on, and there was actually a murder committed there in 1892 that very much fit the Ripper's style of murders to the T.
Oh, wow.
We use forensic evidence. We use pictures. We use not just. This is not just a guess. This is a very, very compelling group of forensics and also just information alone. Shipping records, which we show on the tour, things like that to prove what we're talking about. Now, I believe I know who Jack the Ripper is, but so do a dozen other people in the world. So,
And they all have a different person.
That's right. I agree. I know. But I did my own study, and I feel like it's the right one. So, and that's on the Mystery Island tour, along with how the Mothman prophecies and Galveston come together, how UFO sightings and things like that in Galveston. We cover a few murder cases, the Robert Durst case, and a few others, and a few hauntings as well.
Are there any Bigfoot sightings in Galveston?
Well, there's actually a story of a Sandman, although I don't know if it was just somebody that had a little too much to drink or if it's the truth or not. I really don't know. But a Sandman supposedly was on the sand dunes that was similar to Bigfoot, or so they say, but I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of stock in that story, to be honest. So,
okay.
Galveston Sandman.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and start posting those links into the chat room for people that come through the chat room so they can just copy and paste. Because I don't think my chat room links for some reason. I guess when the fellas at Nuke Extreme made it, they didn't think to, put in the ability to link.
Right.
Or to make it clickable, in other words. But at any rate, it sounds very interesting. I never knew all that was going on down there in Galveston. I do know that here in Houston, there is the story of the Houston Batman.
Right. Which may have been the Mothman. That's you're talking about the one from the 50s?
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah.
You had a chance to investigate that by any chance?
I have. I've investigated. In fact, I mentioned that. I mentioned it just briefly on the Mystery Island tour, and along with a few other things about the Mothman. So they say some people think that may have been the Mothman, the Batman story. So, and the Mothman was actually sighted, according to legend and things like that. He was sighted before the Texas City explosion in 1947. He was also sighted in Galveston before the 1900 storm. Did you know that the UFO story of Aurora, the story from 1896 where they smashed into the water tower and they found the alien and buried him in Aurora, Texas? Do you know about that?
Yes, I do. I'm very familiar with that.
Okay, well, the actual part of that story that a lot of people don't know is that there was a sighting of a UFO, actually, in, I think it was maybe I got my years, maybe it's 1896. They saw it in Galveston. In 1897 it happened in Aurora. I think that's right. And, but anyway, there were actual sightings in Galveston in the newspaper of a strange object in the sky that fit the same description as the UFO that hit the tower there. What, was it a windmill? Yeah, it's a windmill, right?
Yeah, I believe it was a windmill, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and so, there's a lot of ties for some reason to Galveston, not just for near here, but for the world. If you look on the, as far as latitude goes, if you look around the circle, you'll find that many mystic places on that particular circle around the globe are on the same latitude as Galveston. Egypt, places like that.
Okay, can you tell us what the latitude and longitude of Galveston Island is?
I sure can't. I do not know what it is. I've looked at it. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just thought it would be.
I'm a ghost man, and it's Halloween time.
Well, you know, you're not exactly. Well, by my definition, you're not exactly far from the Bermuda Triangle.
Right.
I mean, if you consider yourself just cutting across the bay to the other end of the Gulf there, to the mouth of it, you'd be right there by the Bermuda Triangle. So, that may be a couple 300 miles, but it's still, when speaking latitude and longitude, not a great distance.
That's true. That's true. If you follow it around, if you look at a globe, you can look around and see around the same area. For some reason, each one of those places along, the one that, I think it's Cairo. To tell you the truth, I've studied it. I've seen it a little bit, just briefly, here recently, and I just learned it, so that's something I'm working on right now. But if you look for yourself, I'm sure you can see what I'm talking about there.
Right. I have Google Earth, so it's pretty easy to, just put that in and go to it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very interesting, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if you had a lot of activity down there. I mean, I'm right here in Houston, and I know we get plenty here in our very own back door too, like the Spaghetti Warehouse, John F. Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
I don't know of any places right here in the Houston Heights. You mentioned that this is your old stomping ground, but are you familiar with the Gostic Street in the Heights?
I'm familiar with. I grew up on West 31st, if you know where that is.
I know exactly where that is. My uncle lived at 1003 West 30th until he died.
Wow. Yeah, in Garden Oaks was the area I lived in back then.
Oh, okay. You lived with the rich folks. I lived over here by 610 and Main Street with the poor folks.
I didn't think they were rich. Maybe they were, and I just didn't know. But no, they were. It was a great place to live, actually. Great place to grow up and everything. But my ties to Galveston were always there, mainly for my grandfather, who had a home down that direction, and this man loved to fish, but he could never eat the fish that he caught because he was allergic to them. But he would
that's bad.
It is. He loved to fish, but could never eat. Anyway, but he would take me down there, and he taught me a lot of folklore just when I was a little kid, long before I ever knew I'd be doing anything like this. And it just, there was always a magnetic attraction there, as long as I can remember, And I guess in 1998, the light bulb came on, and I went, that's why I know all this stuff. So,
well,
I'm just telling you a lot of the newer things, some of the newer things that I've been learning here recently. But it's a never-ending cycle of learning that you go through when you start, especially when you're fascinated with a place, the way that people are with Galveston. Not just me. There's a lot of people that love Galveston or are fascinated to all of its mystery, history, legend, which it's rich in every facet of those subjects. You could go on and on and on and on.
Which leads me to wonder if you ever thought about maybe writing a book about it.
Well, I've been writing a book. It's just taken me forever because I keep stopping and building tours. So I've got one I'm working on, and hopefully I hope to have it finished next year sometime because I would like to get it out there, get it finished, and add a few of these things that I've not really been able to talk about, some things that questions people ask, and I'd like to be able to answer some of them. The most important people are the people that go on the tour, and especially what really excites me is when people come back for their, 9th or 10th time, and I've had a lot of those. I had people get married on the tour. I've had people propose to their wife on the tour. I've had many things like that happen that are very endearing. So it's an experience. It's a lot of fun. It's not just, I mean, it's fascinating, it's dramatic, it's exciting, but it's also a real life experience, and that's my hope, that people get their questions answered, the things they really want to know, you know.
Well, do you have an actual event on Halloween Day? Because I would think that would be your busiest day of the year.
Actually, I have 3 events. I have the Restless Spirits Tour, the Secret Society Cemetery Tour, which I didn't get to mention. I was going to tell you about that one. That is going on that night, and also the original Ghost Tour of the Strand, which was the very first tour I started. That's the oldest, and the one that reached #1 in the nation, and also here in the state of Texas. It's the one that most people have gone on or know of. But there'll be 3 tours going that night, and it is a very big night, but actually the weekend before is usually the biggest, because a lot of people are taking their kids trick-or-treating and everything that night.
That is
but
true.
We still have a pretty large crowd. So.
Well, when somebody comes to Galveston, where do they go to look for you?
Oh, IHOP? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Crow's Bar? No, I'm kidding. I would say just go to the website. If you want to find me personally, my phone number is out there. It's all over the place. 832-892-7419. A lot of times I answer the phone, but if you want to get a message to me, you can send me an email at hauntedislandtours@yahoo.com or give me a call.
So you really recommend that if people want to go on a ghost tour, they arrange it in advance through email or phone call or something like that? Don't just show up at your doorstep, in other words. Well,
now wait. Let me clarify this. 2 of the tours require reservations. The Mystery Island tour, and I'm sorry, not tours. One tour and 1 event. The Mystery Island tour requires reservations, and the Ashton Villa Ghost Hunts require reservation, and there's very limited space on that one. So people, if they do want to go, need to go to my site. The best place to find all the information is to go to ghosttoursofgalvestonisland.com. Go to the home page and just scroll down. It's all right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the last thing is the Supernatural Voyage. That's coming out in spring of 2012. And what that's going to be is a boat ride at dusk. And we're going to go out and show you the haunted Galveston Bay side of things. We're going to show you some of the places where the Civil War took place, where we won back our island. There's a great historic, sort of an Alamo story on the water that I'm going to tell there, and I'm going to take you to some places where people have sighted ghost ships and things like that. So
kind of a romantic setup.
Exactly. Good place to bring your lady and relax and just listen to some good stories. It should be fun, though. And
how much is that Supernatural Voyage going to cost?
It's $250. No, I'm kidding. No, it's I don't have a price tag on it yet. I haven't got that far.
Okay.
I'll have it on the site soon enough, and everything will be answered. I really don't know how much I'm going to charge. As little as possible. I try to keep my tours as cheap as I can, because I want everybody to be able to go. You know, everybody to be able to afford it. So the problem is advertising and things like that haven't gone down. So
I sure haven't. I know that.
Yeah. So that's the only reason we try to level our price off where those that may not have quite as much money can go, and also anyone should be able to afford it. The most expensive thing we've got right now is the Ashton Villa Ghost Hunts, and the reason is because it's very expensive to rent out that place for the night. So that's why we have to charge what we're charging. So, and that is $50. And I say that without apology, because that's what it costs us to get it. So, and we hope we sell them all, and I think we're going to. It looks like it, because looks like they're selling pretty fast as we go along here.
Well, we had a couple questions in the chat room. One of them goes all the way back to the Jack the Ripper you were talking about. They want to know, who do you think he is? Who do you think he is?
James Kelly.
James Kelly. Why does that name ring a bell?
Because Mary Kelly was his final victim in Whitechapel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there's a lot of stories about James Kelly. I recommend, if you do research on James Kelly, though, you go away from, I hate to say this, but some of the ripperologists, they try to say, well, this wasn't this way and this wasn't this way. But if you just look at the facts, just the facts, and you go by that, you'll find that he is the most likely candidate. The problem is that some of the story of James Kelly, you have to dig very deep. There's a couple of books out there on him, but they only go to a certain level of the story. So you have to piece together, as I did, you have to piece together your own research and find out for yourself. I was really answering it for me before I ever thought of the tour. You know what I mean? So I wanted to be sure I knew it, because it's something that I've always wondered about. So, and to tell you the truth, at one point, I was not sure at all who Jack the Ripper was, or if James Kelly was a real candidate, until I started doing, as I said, I did my own research. I started with his life at Broadmoor Asylum. I actually contacted Broadmoor Asylum to try to get a transcript, which they're supposed to send me, of his confession. James Kelly left Broadmoor Asylum at 27 years old and returned at 67 years old. So what happened between that time and those 40 years? What happened? I believe that if you trace his footsteps, you'll find that, and I had some help from NYPD and some people involved in that. I did look into some research that they'd done. Also, I did some other research from a few other places. But you'll find that when he left, his pathway took him to various places, and then he landed in New York, where he disguised his name. But according to his confession and according to the newspaper articles, they all do match, and so does age regression. That matches. That's a match of him from 67 back to 27 with the only known picture of Jack the Ripper, which was an illustration. But if you look at that, you'll find that that is a match. So does that answer your question a little bit?
I think so, but there was another question on that.
Okay.
Is he related? And I'm not sure. To Mary Kelly, and I think I just read on Wikipedia while you were talking that he was not related to Mary Kelly.
No. There was a rumor somewhere, I read that him and Mary Kelly may have been together, and that may possibly be how they had an association which led to her death. You know, I don't know if that part of the story is true, though, to be honest.
Right. Well,
it's possible, but I can't say that I know if that's a fact. I mean, all of this is just if you look at facts only, forget the part of following. I mean, serial killers, in other words, you won't find a serial killer. Usually serial killers enjoy what they do. So you won't find one that kills by strangulation and then turns around and poisons the person he's killing, as a rule. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think James Kelly was perfecting his craft all the way through. And I think he finally got the best he could get, I suppose, with Mary Kelly. That was when he had finally done this. He was also, another misconception is that he was in some kind of medical field. I don't think he was in a medical field. I think he was great with a knife because he was an upholsterer, you know.
Ah.
for a living. So he was great. And by the way, the knife that was used in all the Ripper murders absolutely match the what an upholsterer at that time would use for a knife. 6 inches long, 6-inch blade with a pointed end. So I did my homework on that one.
And you said earlier there was a connection between him and Galveston Island, right?
Yes, sir. Yes. The connection is, one of the connections is that there's a newspaper article about, it starts out, has the Ripper invaded Galveston at last?
Oh, wow.
Right. And then it goes on, and I don't want to spoil the tour for you, but there's definitely things on that tour that will blow your mind, especially if you're into the whole Jack the Ripper story.
So you're definitely whetting everybody's appetite for the tour.
Good. I hope so. I hope they enjoy it. Well, nobody has 100%. He would have to come back from the dead, and we'd have to do a DNA test and all that to know for certain, absolutely certain. But I believe, based on the facts that I have, that I do know who Jack the Ripper was. I believe it was him.
You very well could be right. I don't really know enough about it to say myself, but it makes as much sense as anybody else. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, if you go on my tour, I go into a lot more detail than I am here. So you can see some of the forensics and things like that. And there's one more thing that I do. I'd rather not say on the radio, but
okay.
There's another very factual thing that I do on the tour, where people always, whenever they see this, they always, by the time I get to this point, even the most hardcore skeptics usually drop their mouth open and go, "Wow, okay, now I see what you're talking about." Like that. So, Well,
it sounds like you really got a very exciting tour going on, and a very informative one is the word I was looking for. I got tongue-tied on. I also wanted to mention to you that there was another question about, is the Hotel Galveston, I think she said was the name of it, haunted? Yeah, the Hotel Galvez.
Yes, Hotel Galvez, one of the most famous haunted hot spots in Galveston. According to the legend, I should say, and according to the staff there is a belief that there was a woman that actually killed herself by hanging herself from the turret after her, on the rooftop there, after her husband was, or her new husband, I should say, they'd just gotten married. He had to sail away to war, and he died. At least she got a message that he died. And then later, after she killed herself, he came back and found that she was dead. And the story goes, one story says that he killed himself in the same room. Another story says he just went away and lived his life a lonely man. So that's another one that's unsolved, but I'm always looking, So, yeah, room 500, it's some people say it's room 500, others say it's room 505, so there's kind of, that's one thing we're trying to solve. But I say just bring a big group and rent both rooms. So it's a great place. Have you ever been there?
No, sir, I can't say as I have. As many times as I've been to Galveston, that hotel doesn't ring a bell. Actually, I don't remember ever going to any hotel in Galveston at all. When I was there, I stayed in the John Seeley Hospital.
Oh, Galveston has its fair share of haunted hotels, big and small. So,
what about the John Seeley? Do you happen to know if it's haunted?
John Seeley. Well, there have been many people talk to me from time to time about the place being haunted, about seeing apparitions and things like that. I think most hospitals or anything like that have some kind of haunted activity going on, So most likely there are things happening there. I can't give you a great solid answer on that, other than what I hear, what people say. There are no stories of death. There are thousands of stories of death, there. So,
no stories, yet 1,000 stories, okay.
That's right. People die there. So what I mean is there's no, anytime you're in a funeral home or a hospital, things are obviously going on there. That's where people are getting off the train. And also in a hospital, people have caught the train and are arriving at their new destination. So that's why all of them, I think, most all of them anyway, are haunted. So I'm not trying to evade your question. I just don't have a...
no, that's
other
fine.
Than those things I've heard, I don't have a good solid story to tell you, except for one. The face on the UTMB wall. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, the story goes, in 1972, this building was constructed. It was just an added building, part of UTMB. It's over and down a little bit from where the emergency room is there. And not long after construction, a face popped up on the side of it, a very detailed face. And what had happened is, the story goes that an old man owned the land there, and when he did not want to sell the land, he was elderly, and his kids were really running things for him. They sold the land, and then he passed away. But he cursed the land, as they say. But he cursed the land, cursed the children, and cursed whoever got it if they did not follow his orders there. So he basically they believe that that's his face on the wall, and there have been 3 faces since the beginning. That they've actually moved down there. Are you familiar with the way they constructed those old buildings with squares? They're called tilt walls. They built them on the ground and lifted them up. Well, there's on the second one above where he is today. If you look, it's been painted over, and that's because the owner did not want the face there. Supposedly, that's the way the story goes. So it was painted over, and the one below that was actually sandblasted over. When it moved down from there, it was sandblasted over after a couple of young ladies, they were actually student nurses, parked back there and were looking at the face in the middle of the night, and the emergency brake went off in their car, and they rolled back on the boat launching ramp into the water. And one of them died there. So they roped everything off and then sandblasted away the face, and then it came back below that. So
that's spooky.
Go ahead.
No, I said that's spooky.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's a very detailed face. If you look at it today, you can notice eyes, detail in it. You can see the eyeballs, all that, and it's frightening looking, to tell you the truth. So,
kind of like they look right back into you.
Oh, I would say so. Yeah, it's pretty compelling to stand back there. I can't hang around there too long. I generally
gives you the willies.
I just don't get real good vibes from that area, so I stay away from there for the most part. But if you want to go back there and briefly look at the face, you can.
If I'm ever down in Galveston, I'll look you up and have you pointed out to me.
I sure will. Just tell anybody to call me, and I'll give them directions. I'll tell them how to go see it legally.
Oh, there has to be a certain way to do it?
Well, yeah, because they don't want you to hop the fence and all that. So there's a way to go see it where you can drive a certain direction and drive back, and you can actually see the face pretty clear. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad I talked to you about that. Now, I got to ask you, have you heard of any hauntings on the actual Galveston beach itself?
Yes. Near where the Galvez is, they say the bride that killed herself actually walks the beach in front of the Galvez. And that goes on to this day.
Oh. Have you ever went out there and tried to get a picture or an EVP from there? Any luck?
I never got one. I never saw her, but many people have. So
it's just a matter of timing.
I hope to see her someday.
Well, I got to tell you, I understand how that goes. Me and my wife went up to Tennessee, Bent Fork, to visit her mother one year up there by Dollywood. And on the way, we made some stops by the Grand Ole Opry, Elvis's mansion, Loretta Lynn's, Hurricane Mills up there and that. And we spent a couple of nights camping out at Loretta Lynn's Hurricane Mills. And after we left that place, about a month or two later, we were watching the History Channel about ghost shows, I think, one of them. And it called clearly about the ghosts there. And I'm like, we were there 2 days and we didn't see a thing.
Well, I think they show themselves when they want to. And I don't have trouble finding ghosts. Generally, it's a very easy thing for me. I've just never seen the bride, But I don't really look for them. I just kind of live my life, and they come around. That's all. So.
But you do, you get your fair share of the action, though, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. I work from the psychic side of things more than from the scientific side. I feel I've been lucky enough to have helped a few people along the way by using some psychic power that I've gained. I had it all my life, but most of my life I spent not wanting to deal with it, not wanting to be a part of it. So I just, over the last 15 years, I've more or less just went ahead and progressed and allowed myself to go on further into it. The problem with psychic power is it never completely agrees with logic, but then when your psychic work is finished, it makes total sense. So that's how it works for me anyway. So I just have to trust that what I see is right and go with that,
Well, I mean, that's basically the way I would handle it. I mean, if you can't trust your own instincts, what can you trust?
Well, yeah, and I always try to back up what I see or what I feel with fact, and anyone should, because if you take the time to do this and you believe in your first feelings and those kind of things, then you learn over time to trust what you're seeing. You learn, okay, well, I wasn't wrong about this, so, and just to go with it and go ahead and go forward with who you are and do that, because I believe we were all born with psychic ability, but let's face it, it wasn't developed, and we were taught and should eventually unlearn that kind of teaching, but we were always taught to only go by what you see. Well, there's a deeper world. I mean, even in science, we've proven that. So.
Oh yeah, if you look into the world of quantum physics, the world is definitely not everything we always thought it was.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I say to skeptics on my tour, ghosts are on a different vibration. So is your fan.
Yeah, like a different
That's a
frequency.
Wonderful analogy. Look at your fan blades when your fan's off, then turn it on. Can you still see the detail? Of course not, because it's on a different vibration. That's how ghosts operate, same way. So they're still there, though we may not see them. And but.
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to the fact is people think that everybody is solid matter, and science has recently discovered that solid matter is really an illusionary thought, that everything's really energy at different vibrations.
Right. That's right.
So it'd be easier to see something vibrating at slow to almost stop than it is to see something vibrating at 160 light years a minute or something like that.
I know what you mean. Yeah, that's correct. I would say. And like I say, it took me a long time to accept that sort of thing. But when I did, and plus I leaned more toward Christian principles and things like that, growing I was taught that. And so I had a real hard time with it because a lot of those people were not, shall we say, down with what I was doing. So I had to just basically reread things in the Bible and in other spiritual books as well, and reread them for myself and see what my spirit said about it. And once I did that, it became clear to me that even Christ was clear on his view of angels, of demons, of even human ghosts, as apparitions we call them today. And that was he defined those three. So.
Well, see, that's an interesting thing. If you don't, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but how different really is a ghost from an angel in some respects, not in all respects, in as much as they're both mostly energy. Neither one can be seen with the physical eye, and neither one can be filmed easily. You know what I'm saying? They I think, share many traits, and one should have, I think, the same credibility as the other.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, let me give you an example. Do you remember the story, the scripture escapes me now, but when Christ was walking across the water,
right,
and the disciples said, "Look, it's a ghost." Well, do you realize if you look at history of the Bible, you'll find out that before that, Christ had been educating them on demons and how to expel demons. So that would have been a perfect opportunity, as a lot of fundamentalists and people like that say today, that what we are seeing are demons and of the devil and that kind of thing. Well, why didn't Christ run up and tell them, "Hey, I told you about that. Don't say ghosts, say demons"? Because he differentiated between the two,
Right.
So,
and I never meant to imply that the two were the same. I was merely suggesting they had similar attributes.
Right. But there are those, in the particularly in the fundamentalist world that say that anything like that is certainly not of God, and I don't know where they get that from. I still don't know today.
I don't either, but my father was one of them before he passed away. He was a Pentecostal preacher.
Well,
I'm a preacher's kid.
That's okay. The world needs all. I think the world needs all religions. Myself, it makes balance, and that's good. So, my chosen religion is Christianity, but it's not the one of that particular group. I belong to more the mystic side of Christianity, the older.
Like the Gnostic?
Not Gnostic, mystic Christianity. That goes back around the same time the pagans were around.
Right.
Or they began, I should say, or we know of that they began, because they are probably the oldest religion. But it's more along the lines of we believe in prayer. We also believe in some kinds of magic, because magic in itself is neither good nor bad. It's like a gun, you can go out and take your kid and have a fun target practice, or you can do something bad with it. So I think magic, basically, in and of itself, is just a force that you use. And so I don't do it all the time. I don't put spells on people or anything like that. Let me clarify that. But I mean, if I chose to use that route, I could. But I choose to use prayer more than that. And I do a few personal things, cleansings and things like that, for myself and for my family and for anyone that needs my help. I can do that kind of thing or lead them on how to do that. Because we are dealing with a spiritual world with a lot of bad in it. So sometimes it's a fight. And
right.
Try to do the right thing,
Well, me... Sorry. Pardon me. I was going to say, I personally left the church, and I'm more into Hermeticism or alchemy,
Right.
which is very similar to,
Mm-hmm.
Christian mysticism. So it looks
Yeah.
like you and me ended up down a similar path in the end.
I'd say so. Yeah. I was not a big time churchgoer. I went at one period of my life and I studied the Bible for about 7 years just to learn it and just to know it, because I was fascinated by it, and I was also fascinated by man's relationship with God, and I still am. But I wanted to know a little more about Christ and his life and all that kind of thing. So I read for about 7 years, I'd say, and then I got away from it, and I would say I've come back with a lot more balance in that subject. Though I do not run out. I try to live the way I think in front of people, the way my, instead of trying to drag people to Christ or something. I think if you live the right kind of life, the way you think they do, that they'll be compelled to find their own path as well with God, but to also to be compelled by you, by the life you're leading, because it's really the God within us all that moves this world.
I agree. I mean, it's one thing to go to church and walk the walk on Sunday and Wednesday nights.
Right.
Another thing to walk the walk every waking moment.
Oh yeah.
One way it's who you are, the other way it's who you.
I'm human.
I'm human. Don't get me wrong, but I believe that everybody should strive to their highest goal, and they should always strive to raise the mark on a daily basis and push the limit as far as they can push it for perfection. And you may not never achieve it, but again, it's usually the journey that makes everything worthwhile.
Oh yeah. George Harrison said, "The search." What was he said? The search for God never ends, and that's the truth.
I don't know. I never heard that saying, but
George Harrison. It was something along those lines. I believe it's the search for God never ends. I think that's what he said. You can look it up. It's somewhere out there. I may be quoting it slightly wrong. That's possible.
Don't feel bad. I do that all the time.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. To you and your listening audience, I'm tired. I've been working. I've been trying to get this thing going, and I've spent these long days. So before I do this convention, I'm going to have a couple of days to just rest for a while, and that's what I hope for, because getting ready for this and the schedule that we have this time is pretty heavy. So we got a lot going on.
All righty.
But I didn't mean that toward talking to you now. I meant just in general.
Right. Well, I was just fixing to say it's already getting to be 9 o'clock. We've already been on for about an hour. I was going to mention once again to all the listeners that the conference website is ctparacon.com. And, wait, we got a caller coming in. Let's take that real quick. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I just wanted to know, can we just show up on any of the ghost tours?
Anyone you choose to, especially since you work for me, right?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing. Is this Brian?
No.
Oops.
No. I believe
you're live.
I'm wise beyond my years, right? But I know your voice. So, how you doing?
I'm good.
Yes,
okay.
You can just show up at the tour. All the tours except for the Mystery Island tour and the Ashton Villa Ghost Hunt. And the rest of you can show up anytime you want. But Brian, you better be there, buddy.
All right. Well, I'm listening.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite tour guide, by the way. This is Brian Trabig, and he's been with me now for about 2 years, and he is my lead tour guide and manager, really, for this thing. So say hello, Brian.
Hello. I just wanted to say I'm listening to you guys, and it sounded great. I love the idea of the quantum physics with the frequency. and also about talking about magic that words are very important, like prayer in the religions that you guys were talking about. But I am enjoying what you guys are talking about, and I just wanted to say hello.
Well, listen, Brian, if you really enjoyed that part of the conversation about quantum physics, you might want to come back tomorrow night. If Dash don't mind me sliding this plug in real quick, I'm going to be talking to Larry Flaxman, who's been on my show before, and he's got an upcoming symposium in Taos, New Mexico at the end of October, and he's going to be discussing non-traditional theories of quantum and theoretical physics and noetics and consciousness research. So if you like that particular kind of subject, tomorrow night would be a good night for you.
Thanks.
Very good.
Thank you.
And that's
awesome.
tomorrow night at 8.
Okay, thank you very much, you guys.
Now, I was also going to mention to you, Dash, that I'm the South Texas director at United Paranormal International. They're a website that has researchers from all around the world. Matter of fact, you may want to look them up and look into joining them, because I don't think they have any ghost hunting groups up there in Galveston, and you might know some people you might can turn them on to. That's United Paranormal International.ning.com. I like to get a plug in for them because they kind of help plug my show too as well. So it's a kind of a trade off there.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'll look them up. Sure will.
Yeah, you can also
ask them to email me their stuff. I'd like to see it. And you can email Brian too if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, you can send me Brian's information in an email. Just you got my email address, I think, from our correspondence.
Okay.
Like I was saying, though, it's already 9:02. I was going to mention to everybody that we got that show tomorrow, but I already mentioned that. See, usually my shows are only on Tuesday nights and Saturday afternoons, but during conference season, September and October, I have shows as needed, which is why I'm having one tomorrow. So at any rate, I want to thank everybody who came and attended, took a part in the show. Everybody's been just wonderful as always. If y'all don't catch the thing live, it will be in the archive, and I will be passing this around. And look for Mr. Paranormal over at YouTube, cause I'm going to probably, starting with this show, start uploading some of my shows up over there as well. Dash, I tell you what, it's already getting to be 9 o'clock. I got to start getting ready to get towards bed so I can get up and get my son off to school tomorrow.
Okay.
Do you have any last-minute thoughts?
Well, I appreciate you having me, and I'd love to come back again sometime, and I'd like to see everybody at the Central Texas Paranormal Convention, and remember, you're the only one that can change every day, every minute of the day. You change your world, and your thoughts and the things that you produce from your life, your thoughts are what change everything. So stay with good thoughts, and I hope to see you all soon.
Okay, doke. That sounds like a winner to me. I would like to try to make it, but to be honest with you, I don't have any transportation up there to Austin. I'm on disability, so I quit driving.
Oh, okay. Well, keep your show going. That's a good thing. That's a great thing.
We'll definitely do that, Dash. And I'm glad you said you wanted to come back in the future, because I was planning to ask you that before I let you get out of here. So you already answered it.
No problem. I love it.
All righty. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Brian. And thank you very much, Dash. And it's been a pleasure. And I look forward to having y'all in the future.
All right. You take care now.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
That I have a lot of fact. for it. So, because I just didn't want to tell people a bunch of lies and, make a few bucks and all that stuff. I wanted to do something really good. And I think it's turned into that.
So, do you have any idea what got you attracted by Paracon?
I have no idea. I do not know. I don't know. I guess they saw my picture and went, boy, he looks weird,
Actually, my wife said you reminded her of Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Well, that's not the first time I've heard that. That's, I guess, in a way, that's a compliment. Although he's not the best-looking guy in the world, but Dog's a good guy. He is. He does a good thing. Yeah, I've heard that. I think it's just the hair.
Yeah, I think so. Your hair looks very close to his.
Yeah.
And
except I don't have the little pompadour in the front like he does, But
I never paid attention to that, but I will next time she's watching it.
Yeah. He's got a pointed front there or something going on. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that you used to, you were originally from Houston, if I understood you correctly?
Yes, sir. I was born and raised in the Heights.
In my stomping grounds.
Right. My father was in the oil business. My grandfather was the head accountant for Gulf Oil for years, for about 47 years, as a matter of fact. And I was the black sheep of the family, pretty much. So, I had a kind of a rough entrance, shall we say, into this world, but everything worked out, and I'm pleased with where I am today. I learned a lot on the way. Like I say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So that's what happened. Things got better.
Okay. Well, my wife was asking in the chat room if the Bishop's house in Galveston is haunted.
Bishop's Palace?
House.
The Bishop's house. I know Bishop's Palace.
Maybe that's what she meant. Maybe she got the name mixed up.
I think she means Bishop's Palace. Well, it's rumored to be haunted, but they are very strict in Galveston about that kind of thing. And so I'll have to respect what they ask, about that. There are some stories floating around. To be honest with you, I don't know if they have a lot of fact behind them. But I believe there's activity going on there. But as long as they want to keep it quiet, I'll have to abide by that, But there's many other places there that are haunted. The Tremont Hotel, very haunted place. The Ashton Villa, another very haunted place. In fact, this year, one of our activities is we're going to do the very first of the Ashton Villa ghost hunts. And that is where Miss Betty Brown, James Brown, and he was a white guy, but and I don't think he danced either. But James was a very successful man in hardware, and his daughter was very colorful, and so we'll save that for the show, okay?
Okay.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be Dash Beardsley, a.k.a. the Ghostman of Galveston, Texas. And he does ghost tours in the Galveston Island area. And we're going to talk about his tour thing, and we're going to talk about what he's going to be doing for the Paracon Central Texas Paranormal Conference coming up. I want to say October 8th and 9th, and let me look at their page, and yes, October 8th and 9th, this month, and about another 4 days, in fact. And we're going to talk about his role there and some of the things they have going on, as well as his ghost tours and anything else that he might have going on, as much as we can squeeze into the time we got to squeeze. So, Dash, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing just fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you here. And, yeah, I got to tell you, I never knew you had that going down there in Galveston. Me and my wife are talking about how we'd like to go on one of your ghost tours one of these days.
Right. Well, when I started this thing in 1998, I didn't do a lot of advertising because, as I was telling you a while ago, things came together and several points in my life, and I was a little unsure at first. People think she haunts that mansion because various people have gone by and seen her, and people that have worked there say they've seen and heard her. And but that's a very famous ghost story. So I did some research on it myself, and I came away with a different conclusion. And we're going to find out this October. We're on the 22nd and 23rd, and then the last weekend. What is that? The 28th, 29th. We're going to do 4 ghost hunts. The attendance is limited, but we're going to do some there with some great paranormal investigators, and so that should be interesting. Be the very first one. It took me this long to talk them into doing it. So.
Sounds like you're going to have a time of your life, though. Also, before I forget, I want to mention anybody because I realize not everybody listens at my website. A lot of people might be listening at Shoutcast or at iTunes. You can call in at 832-632-7904 if you have any questions you want to ask. And if you want to join us at www.paranormalpalace.com, sign up is free, and you can get into the chat room with Mickey and Carol and have a high old time talking while you're listening. Also, I wanted to mention that the website for Dash here is www.ghosttoursofgalvastonisland.com, and he's got a nice page up. He's got a YouTube video up on the front page, and you can see how he looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter right there in his logo. And
but then it became clear, what I was meant to do, what I was supposed to do, and so it took a while for me actually, to develop into a good storyteller, a good tour guide, and all that kind of thing, because I had no experience at that, and I wanted to be good at it. So I took about 2 years to just develop and work on it, and it took, I guess, till about 2002 to really start being noticed, and then after that, things took off. So,
well, at least you got something to do there that's really pretty. It's a lot of fun to do. And I think you mentioned to me before the show started that you've been doing this since '98.
Yes, sir. Yeah, since 1998. I started in '98, and I was, like I said, I wasn't a very good tour guide, to tell you the honest truth, when I started. And I started studying people, every speaker that I could find that was good, from Billy Graham to Sam Kinison to, comedians, different people, just to have a good delivery in the stories. Because the stories alone are not enough. Many ghost tours have started and failed because they had no entertainment ability. And so you've got to have that along with good material and real stories. That was another thing. I wanted very much to make sure my stories were well studied